Hi, I'm Femi Oke. The Tokyo 2020 Paralympic Games are underway. More than 4,000 athletes are standing by to take part. It is one of the biggest international events for athletes with disabilities. Now, if we go to the University of Tokyo, Mark Bootman thinks that this Paralympics is an incredible opportunity. Have a look, have a listen.
Can the Paralympics create a watershed moment around disability awareness in Japan? Absolutely. Over the last couple of years, there have been a number of projects to remove barriers to education, employment, entertainment, and other sectors of society for disabled people. Now, at the Games, the world will have a chance to watch and learn from Japan's success stories, as well as its failures. Indeed, there's going to be a chance to have a global conversation around what it means to create a truly accessible and inclusive society for persons with disabilities, both inside and outside of Japan.
Now, that is what Mark is thinking. What is the conversation you want to hear today? Are you watching the Paralympic Games? Have you participated? Are you eager to know more? Yes, yes, yes. OK, here's the comment section. If you're on YouTube, jump into the comment section, be part of today's programme. Let's meet our guests. Right here in the studio, I have Linda. Linda, good to have you here. Welcome. And Anne and Sam. Linda, first of all, tell our audience who you are in the context of the Paralympic Games.
Of course. So I was a Paralympic athlete in the 1992 and 96 Games, Barcelona and Atlanta, competing for the United States in wheelchair track, and won a gold and silver medal in 1996 in Atlanta for the US.
Oh, it's so exciting. Hello, Anne. Welcome back to the stream. So good to have you. Remind our audience who you are in the context of the Paralympic Games.
I'm Anne Wafula Strike. I am a Paralympian. I represented Kenya in 2004 and joined the British in 2006.
All right, good to have you, Anne. And Sam, welcome to the stream. Introduce yourself to our international audience and the context with which you're coming to us to talk about the Paralympic Games.
Thanks for having me on the show. And yeah, I've been fortunate enough to represent Great Britain twice at Paralympic Games, London 2012 and Rio 2016. And for the first time, I'm watching from home. So I was looking forward to it.
Oh, now you know what it feels like, Sam. All right, let's start here on my laptop. This is from the Paralympic Games Twitter account. Memories to last a lifetime. I love the Olympics so much. How good was that opening ceremony? Paralympics, Tokyo 2020. I am wondering, Linda, you get us started. What is it like to be in that Paralympic village right now with all of your sports ahead of you, knowing your competition is coming up? Do you feel any different from the athletes who were in the same village a couple of weeks ago, do you think?
No, I don't think so. I think you feel this sense of excitement, anticipation, readiness, you know, this feeling that you're ready to take on the world, that you're part of something bigger than yourself. You're representing your country, you're there with your team, but you're really representing that to the world.
Mm-hmm. And you know what it's like to be there. You've been there, you're a winner. This moment for those Paralympians, what is that like?
Do you know, I think, first of all, you sort of just get selected. Your name is called out, and it changes how you feel about things. Because for a start, you know that you are not just an athlete, but you're actually an elite athlete. You are good enough to represent your nation. You are good enough to represent your country. So I'm sure the athletes would be feeling, you know, they'll be feeling so much joy, elation, but also they must be wanting to do their best. There's anxiety that comes with it. You know, there's panic. Personally, I used to panic, you know, every night before I went out to compete. So I'm sure some of them will be feeling that.
You're making me feel scared. I'm not even close to competing anywhere. Sam, that was a snort that resonated, right? Why did you snort? Go ahead. Articulate it.
I can only echo what Linda and Anne have already said. It's a nerve-wracking feeling to be in that position, but all the training, all the preparation, you've done all that, and you know you're part of history. You're part of a very small percentage that I now get to represent your country at the highest level. And I know they'll all be feeling that they're ready. They've been waiting for this for another year. Remember, of course, the pandemic has pushed all sporting events backwards, so they've had to wait a year for this. They'll be ready. They'll be ready.
Right. I'm really glad you say that, because a little while ago on the stream we had Jules Boykoff on, and Jules has campaigned for many years for the Olympics to be either reformed drastically or absolutely banned. One of his arguments for not going ahead with Tokyo was COVID, our global pandemic. This is what he said about the Paralympic Games.
To ram ahead with the Paralympic Games is to take a massive gamble with global public health, with the public health in Japan, and also with the health of Paralympic athletes, some of whom are immunocompromised and thus more open to the ravages of COVID-19.
Oh, Linda, with your legal head on there, what do you think?
So I think this is a challenging year, no doubt, but I think that the athletes, the teams, the delegations, the International Paralympic Committee, the Japan Organizing Committee have all taken great measures, great pains, great steps to ensure the safety of the athletes and the coaches and the staff and the Japanese public as well. And you know, I don't know that there's a perfect solution, but I think the games to me they're so important, and I think we need them right now. We need something of this magnitude that can uplift us and remind us that we can achieve great things, that we can transcend.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and go ahead.
Do you know, I think you are so right. We needed these games. And do you know why we needed these games? Because the pandemic has just shown, you know, that big gap between the disabled people and non-disabled people become even wider and wider. So I think these games are just on time, you know, to remind the world that we are here, we can do our best, but also to remind the world that what happens after the games, you know, what is going to happen to the athletes, what's happening to those other disabled people who are not Paralympians, who are not competing in these 12 days. This is a reminder that this, you know, disability is here, and this is something that the world cannot run away from.
Go on, Liz, you go first.
I was just going to say that's right. I think that it is a reminder. The games are really a springboard, right? They're an important event in and of themselves, but they are really a springboard to something bigger. They are a mechanism to communicate to the world about the abilities of people with disabilities and the possibility when you provide opportunity to people with disabilities. And I think that is something that transcends the games, it carries further than the games, and that's the message that needs to come out of these games.
Audience, I am hoping, that our guests, that Sam and Anne and Linda, are going to be like throwing out Paralympian names. So by the end of this show, you'll be like, whoa, I know so many Paralympians in the beginning. I will start that game, okay, with KG Montjani, and she's a Paralympic wheelchair tennis player from South Africa. The best in South Africa, one of the best in the world. She is in Tokyo right now. This is what she said a few months ago about competing.
I'm so lucky my generation could go out there and play, and whenever opportunities like that to represent my country, you know, carry it with a lot of pride, because it's not only for me, but it also gives hope to those who are at home, who are from similar background as me, to actually be hopeful that they can make it in any aspect of their life.
So our audience are watching right now on YouTube. There's a comment here. Now, guests, I want you to be truly, truly honest, because part of this show is educational as well. So this is Addy. Addy, thank you so much for watching. Very excited for the Paralympics. It is the showcase of the world's superhumans. It is much cooler, and yet it is always less prioritised. Fewer broadcasters and sponsors compared to the Olympics. There's a lot in that. Excitement, but also a way of seeing Paralympians. Sam, do you want to start with that?
Having been doing some work with broadcasters in Africa and outside of Africa, the story there is so important. Broadcasting needs to happen for the Paralympic Games. It's our shop window. It happens once every 4 years, and it's the only time around the world that you will see people with a disability at large. And it only happens once every 4 years. It's such an important moment that we have to take advantage of. And the value of it will soon come to fruition. I think the Olympics and the Paralympics, they're two separate things. People do want them to be on equal parity. They want parity between those two things, and Paralympians are always banging in the drum for that. We can only hope that after Tokyo, the investments will start to come, and with Paris only 3 years away now, the interest and the finances are only going to increase, hopefully.
There are absolute challenges, though, and Paralympians are pointing out what these challenges are. I want to introduce you to Christine Duquette. She is a former Team USA swimmer and disability advocate. Have a listen, have a look. All right, we're going to come to Christine in just a moment. Christine is going to be talking about some of the challenges that Paralympians have in terms of practicing, in terms of access to facilities, in terms of coaching. These are really difficult things. They're difficult things if you're an athlete anywhere. Linda, can you tell me your experience? And when you're fighting for disability rights and you're being that advocate like Christine is, what are you finding that may well surprise people?
Sure. So I came from Chicago and was participating in disability and Paralympic sport programs there. And one of the things that we had to do was fight for access to facilities. I had to negotiate with track coaches, with administrators of schools and programs to get time on the track to train. Our sled hockey team literally had ice time at midnight. That's the only time the rink would give them, midnight.
Midnight.
Midnight. And so access to facilities, in the prime hours didn't happen. It was always off hours, off time. So it was a really, a recognition of the lesser importance placed on disability sport, Paralympic sport. I think things are slowly changing over time, but I think what has to happen, even more than getting physical access to places, it's the attitudes. It's the misunderstanding of Paralympic sport, of disability sport, of the power of these pursuits, right? And the importance that we need to place on them.
Let's get it.
Linda, she's absolutely right. The biggest disability is a bad attitude. It's the worst. And
You're so right.
Before anybody, they don't even have to be an athlete. Before anybody gets to the door of their facility, wherever they're practicing, whether it's the track, the pool, the field, if it's inaccessible, that person's going to turn away immediately because they're going to believe this person doesn't cater to me. They don't want me here. They're not interested in me. But even if they do get in the door, if the ramp is there, if the access lift is there, the coach, if he isn't able to adapt his practice, if he isn't able to adapt the way he thinks and the way he believes about what this athlete can do, it's going to be a terrible session for them. And if it's the first session and the first impression, they won't come back. And that's the most important. She's absolutely right. That's the most important thing that we have to focus on. It's the attitude, and hopefully the Paralympic Games will seek to change that attitude and challenge perspectives.
Here's Christine.
Yeah. But you know what? But another point here is, like sometimes equipment is just extremely expensive, and because of that, you sort of get to see that certain nations will be disadvantaged over others, or vice versa. And I think maybe this is something that that the para movement need to to look into. How do we bring that fairness? How do we make sure that disabled people from the developing nations get equal access to real para sport? Everything
and to make it sustainable as well. And
yes.
And to make it sustainable.
Let me just bring in Davy Mukangani, who is a Gabonese Paralympic sprinter, and he picks up where you left off on how difficult it is to even get basic equipment for his sport. Let's have a look. Let's have a listen.
My working conditions are not very adequate. So I would like the Federation and the government to take a little interest in the athletes, because I can only train with what I've got. I have nothing, but I get by like a real Gabonese man. I don't have a choice. You see yourself, there is not even a starting block, so even the starts are complicated. I can't wear track spike shoes because the suitable fields are basically closed. You may do with what you have.
Sam, how do you address that? Just lack of equipment for, like, the Paralympics, the Olympics, is international. It's not international if you can afford it. It's not supposed to be like that.
Unfortunately, it's a very unlevel playing field, and I know Annie can attest to this, and Linda as well, being wheelchair track racers. Very often, if the technology is of the highest quality, the technology will help the athlete get to the line quicker. There were two athletes in the Ghanaian team in 2012 that finished that didn't even make it to the semi-finals because their chairs were that poor of the standard. They could not compete. The Paralympic committees in sub-Saharan Africa, I'm thinking about Zambia, I'm thinking about Ghana, I'm thinking about Malawi. All of these people that run these committees, they're holding down jobs of their own. And their funding comes from their own pockets. The government are not interested. Sponsorship is really hard to come by because businesses are not big enough. They don't have a social responsibility or corporate social. They don't have a budget for sponsorship. So it's a very, very, very difficult thing to try and tackle. The willingness is there. The finances. People need to see the benefits in allowing sponsorship to be sustainable. As I said to Annie, a feel-good donation that comes once a year is not going to help an athlete sustain their progression towards a Paralympic Games.
Yeah, I promised you Christine Duquette earlier, and here she is.
As a former disabled Team USA swimmer, I can certainly say that our disabled athletes here in the United States need more support. We need more support and understanding from our coaches to training, to our practices, to our infrastructure, and even through our collegiate settings to create a better pipeline and a more accessible pipeline for all athletes who truly want to be at a Paralympic level of all levels of disability.
So I am seeing here, guests, some challenges that have been happening in the Paralympics and also Special Olympics and sports where people with disabilities are taking part. These have been going on for a long time. Mm-hmm. Linda, what's got better? What's changed?
I think, from the time I was competing in the 90s to now, certainly the attention of corporate sponsors has changed and improved. The number of nations competing and able to field delegations has improved. I think the representation, right? We hear representation matters, right? Representation matters. It goes to what Kristen was saying about developing that pipeline. I think that some countries are better at developing and implementing that pipeline, and others, like the United States, for example, need some work. But I think that the games can help, facilitate that, because when you have some young child who can now watch the games on TV and see somebody like themselves and say, wow, I can do that, right? Mm-hmm. Then that starts the conversation with their parents who go to the schools, who get the money to make it happen. Now, yes, I'm talking more specifically about the US than some of the more resource-challenged countries than we were talking about a moment ago. But I think what we also then have to do is get the resource, the more heavily resourced countries like the UK, the US, Australia, Canada, together to really facilitate growing the worldwide pipeline. And, I think we can do it. It takes some effort, but I think we can do it. And I think we have to do it because it goes to what Anne and oh my goodness, Sam, sorry.
Yeah.
What Anne and Sam were saying. What Anne and Sam were saying
Perfect double act.
Right, about equity and about fairness, right?
Yeah,
and I think it's incumbent upon those of us who have benefited from, an excess of resource to share that with others.
There is a campaign right now, Anne, and I was in the UK just last week, and I heard you on the radio talking about this, We the 15. So the 15 is 15% of everybody in the world, of our global population, will have some kind of disability. We the 15 was launched around these Paralympic Games, saying we need to be thinking about us as a community, as a global community, beyond maybe just watching fantastic Paralympics. Here's a little snip of the campaign video.
You're such an inspiration.
So brave.
You remind me to be happy.
I love that you don't let it get you down.
Good for you.
It breaks my heart. watching you out and about.
You push our sport to do better.
You are superheroes.
Really?
Yeah, we're superheroes, all right.
We're getting the kids out the door on time.
We push strollers.
Io sono il passeggino.
I'm grateful.
But there's nothing special about us.
Some serious attitude right there.
I love
smashing the stereotypes, smashing ideas of what Paralympians are like, and also people with disabilities. And quick thought about that, then Sam, then Linda.
Do you know what? I just love that video because, for once, I think people always think that when you have a disability and do anything, you suddenly become a superhuman or a superhero. And I think what they're trying to tell us is we are just ordinary human beings that really want to be included in society.
Yeah. Except that you three don't actually fit into that category. But I hear what you're saying. I hear your point. All right, Sam, thoughts, quick. We the 15.
Well, it's a fantastic campaign, but it needs teeth. It needs not just to challenge perceptions, but also grab the necks of the stakeholders, the policyholders, and affect the change at the top. Those that have the power, those that have the keys, the finances, need to start taking it seriously because there's a world that's inaccessible and it needs to be more accessible. And hopefully the Paralympic Games keeps banging in the drum and getting the message out there that Paralympians are here to stay, but it's about the world at large,
I tell you what, Sam, you say that. And one thing that I would like to say is, I think the world just have to realize that disability is it is the only and largest minority group that anyone can join anytime. Anytime.
In an instant.
Yeah. That's such a good reminder. And we could age into disability as well. So everybody out there feeling cocky, you could be right there at some point. Linda.
Absolutely. So I think the We the 15 campaign it's fabulous. It's timely, and I think tying it into the Paralympic Games this year is really important. And I think what is really necessary is for the world to understand, right, that as Ann and Sam pointed out, we are not all superheroes and superhuman, but that people with disabilities may compete in the Paralympics just like people without disabilities may compete in the Olympics, but we may be lawyers and doctors and writers and, parents and all of these other things too. And I think this opens the door to that conversation that there's economic power with people with disabilities and their families and friends, right? It's a huge number and not to be ignored, I think, to Sam's point.
All right, this is a new Paralympic tradition. Name one Paralympian that you're watching for, Sam, that we need to be watching out for. Very quickly, don't think, don't pause, go ahead.
I'm biased. It's my best friend. His name's Jonathan Broom Edwards, and he'll go in the T. He'll go in the T42, or is the F? Even I don't remember these days. High jump. That's his thing.
Linda.
Alexa Halko, T34 wheelchair racer from the US.
Oh, there's no pausing now.
Alexa's awesome. She's awesome. She's great.
People are Googling right now. Anne, who are you looking out for?
David Weir. David has just come out of retirement after winning 4 gold medals in the 2012 Paralympics. So I'll be watching him. He'll be doing 2 events.
All right, so it's been such a pleasure having you, Sam and Anne and Linda. You got us really, really excited about watching the Paralympics in Tokyo and about being good allies and watching and what do we need to do going forward, not just for a month, once every 4 years. Let me leave you with the impact of the power of sport if you're a person with disabilities. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.
Sport for me has a big place. Thanks to this, I flourished physically. I rebuilt myself mentally.
Je me suis reconstruit mentalement.
Through sport, we value ourselves like others. Why not go to the Olympic Games like others, like the able-bodied? Why not do great things in sport and even have a job through sport? So it gives us our dignity. It gives us hope.
I wish that society would not look down on those who are disabled and that it sees our capabilities and not our handicap, because disability is a gift, not an obstacle.
يعني هو المعاق اللي بيبدي جدارة للمجتمع.